it is an inherent right of the states. And just to give you a little background, the federal government has only those powers granted to it by the states through the federal Constitution. And the 10th Amendment to the Constitution retains all other rights to the states. And one of those rights is sort of a general police power of the states and also cities and counties for the health protection of its citizens. What state law provides is that during a health emergency, and they list one of them as being a pandemic, where the governor declares an emergency, the governor has certain powers to quarantine people. The governor could, for instance, force people to get vaccinated, and there are a bunch of other powers that the governor has that he or she wouldn't have in the absence of such an emergency. The U.S. Supreme Court, in several instances over the past 200 years, has held that the states have this sovereign power determine whether to quarantine people and to exercise its powers to protect the health and welfare of its citizens. For instance, there was a case in 1905. A pastor in Massachusetts brought a case saying that the state of Massachusetts could not force him to get a smallpox vaccination. And the U.S. Supreme Court at that time sided with the state of Massachusetts, saying that its healthcare powers weighed over those of the individual here. I mean, there's a balancing act that goes on. It depends on the facts of the situation between the state's health police powers versus the individual rights of assembly and the individual rights of travel. Now, if someone could show that there wasn't a real emergency, and I think a lot of the people protesting today at bottom feel that there really isn't an emergency. You see them say, oh, it's just the flu, or what's the big deal? They would have to go convince a court that the state's claim that there was a real emergency was not factually true. But a court would give a lot of deference to the state's healthcare experts to say, no, there is a pandemic going on, and the only way to effectively fight it at the moment in absence of a vaccine is to socially distance. And so the states are given a lot of leeway in that, and in almost all those cases, the states or the city would win. Once we get through where we are right now and return back to normal, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I can see people saying, well, we need to tweak our laws on how to deal with this. I mean, after all, we haven't had an pandemic for, 100 years? And so nobody living today has any experience with something of this scope. So I'm sure we've learned some lessons from this.